The barrel of the pistol gleamed under the unforgiving noon sun. It was pointed directly at my chest, and the sheer audacity of it left me breathless. "This is a legal document, not a suggestion, Mr. Evans," Karen seethed, her voice a low, venomous hiss that cut through the still air. She was the HOA president, a woman who wielded power like a weapon, and she was doing it right there, on the very edge of my property line. I could hear my father's staggered breathing behind me, a sound of a man watching his life's work being dismantled piece by piece. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so pure and hot it was a physical ache. How did we get here? How did a simple fence dispute escalate into a land grab at gunpoint? This wasn't a neighborhood, it was a battlefield. I stared at the gun, then at Karen's facial mask of smug self-righteousness. "Karen, what are you doing?" my fiancée, Sarah, pleaded, her voice trembling. "This is insane. You can't just..." Karen cut her off with a sharp, dismissive wave of the hand. "The covenants are clear. Your lot is improperly zoned for a garden shed of this size. The variance was denied. Therefore, per section 17, subsection B, the board has voted to seize the encroaching portion of your property to ensure community aesthetics. It's a unanimous decision, a unanimous decision." I saw red. I'd spent 6 months and thousands of dollars on that shed. It was a workshop for my father, a haven for the man who had lost his job and his dignity, and a way for us to bond, and she knew it all. The glint in her eyes wasn't just smugness, it was a cruel satisfaction. My father, a man who had faced down corporate raiders and emerged victorious, now looked like a ghost. He took a shaky step forward. "Karen, please, we can talk this through. Let's look at the plat maps again." Karen simply scoffed. "No need. The papers are all signed, sealed, and delivered. The city has already been notified." She motioned to 2 men in identical uniforms who were now hammering a wooden sign into the ground, a sign that crudely declared a sliver of my land, very land, where my father's new workshop stood, was no longer mine. It was a slap in the face. It was a mugging in broad daylight. What kind of person does this to a neighbor? What kind of monster holds a gun to your family just to take a few feet of grass? The sheer injustice of it all fueled my next move, a cold, calculated clarity cutting through the haze of fury. Karen thought she had all the power, but she had overlooked one crucial detail. As her uniformed goons finished their work, I saw an opportunity. My father's hobby wasn't just woodworking. It was a meticulous documentation of every single financial transaction related to our property. We had been saving and meticulously categorizing every scrap of paper. I remembered a conversation with a family friend, a real estate lawyer, about a legal loophole, a small, seemingly insignificant detail in the HOA's original bylaws, one that allowed a member to seize control of the board by acquiring a majority of outstanding shares. Most people didn't even know the HOA was a corporation with shares. Karen certainly didn't. Her power was a borrowed illusion. I took a deep breath, the air thick with the smell of freshly cut grass and a simmering tension. I needed to move fast and be utterly silent about it. The HOA's annual meeting was in 2 weeks. I had a plan. My father, with a renewed flicker of purpose in his eyes, became my co-conspirator. He had every document, every financial record of the HOA that he had collected over the years, all in pristine order. They were the keys to the kingdom. While Karen was gloating and sending us passive-aggressive emails about our trespassing shed, we were working. Late into the night, we pored over the bylaws, cross-referencing everything with the city's land records. The plan was audacious, borderline insane, but it was our only shot at justice. The day of the annual meeting arrived. Karen was in her element, presiding over the small crowd with a practiced, condescending air. She was a petty tyrant on her throne, reading off budget items and dictating the future of our neighborhood with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was about to bring up the new community space, our land, when I stood up. A hush fell over the room. "I have a motion," I said, my voice steady despite the furious pounding of my heart. Karen's smile vanished. "Mr. Evans, you are not recognized to speak. Please, take your seat." "No, I believe I am," I countered, pulling out a sheaf of papers. "I have a motion to replace the entire board of directors, effective immediately." Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's face went white. "What is this nonsense?" she spat. "You can't just..." I held up the paperwork. According to the original corporate bylaws, section 4.7, an individual who acquires a majority of outstanding shares has the right to call for an immediate board recall vote, and I believe I have them right here. I presented the documents. There it was, in black and white, our family. Through a series of carefully orchestrated purchases from original homeowners who had moved away, had acquired 51% of the total shares. Karen was stunned into silence. She looked around the room, her eyes darting from face to face. Searching for an ally, there were none. The neighbors, long tired of her bullying, were watching with a mixture of shock and quiet satisfaction. The twist was a dagger to her heart. The power she thought she owned was merely a loan, and I had just called it in. The meeting erupted. Karen, ever the drama queen, stood and pointed her finger at me. "This is a conspiracy. This is illegal," she shrieked. My real estate lawyer friend, who was there as a neighbor and now stood to my side, spoke calmly. All procedures were followed to the letter of the law. The shares were purchased legally and recorded properly. The motion is valid. Karen's face was a masterpiece of conflicting emotions, fury, disbelief, and a dawning, terrifying fear. I looked her in the eye. "Karen," I said, my voice quiet but firm, "you tried to take my land. You held a gun to my family. Now, I'm taking your HOA. What a shame, isn't it?" The final confrontation was less a battle and more a theatrical collapse. Karen's carefully constructed empire of rules and regulations came crashing down. We voted. The motion passed with my 51% share and the support of a few brave neighbors, and she was removed from power. The next day, I became the interim president. My first act, walking into the HOA office, looking at the board members who had so eagerly backed Karen's tyrannical plan, and firing every single one of them. The two men who had pounded the sign into my lawn were the first to go. "You're fired," I said, handing them their final paychecks. "And you can take that sign with you." The look of shock on their faces was priceless. The final act was a peaceful one. The sign was gone. My father's workshop was untouched, and the HOA, once a tool of petty tyranny, was now an instrument of community and cooperation. We instituted a new set of bylaws, a new board based on democratic principles, and a clear, fair system for resolving disputes. There were no more guns, no more threats, and no more Karens. It was a bitter lesson, but a powerful one. I learned that sometimes the only way to beat a bully at their own game is to change the rules entirely. The old board, including Karen, was left with nothing. They had lost their power, their influence, and their moral high ground. And the land that was almost stolen, it was now the site of a community garden, a symbol of our new beginning. What's your take? Was my reaction justified? Or did I simply become the very thing I fought against?